I made these lists for my rankings for running backs last night before the Dallas Cowboys game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I have to say, Eagles defense did not look as good as last year, but it is only week one, so don't overreact. And the Cowboys offense and run game surprisingly looked okay. Not absolutely horrible. But then again, it is only week one, so don't overreact. This is my first time doing these running back rankings. I do want to throw that out there, so bear with me a little bit, have a little bit of patience. If you make it to the end, you're an amazing person for having the patience to stick with me on my first time doing these. One thing I do want to note is that for week one, week two, it is going to be hard to give you a perfect, amazing rankings or tiers because of the fact that it's hard to know what kind of defenses we're going to be going up against for individual players. We're kind of more basing it off of last year's information and the team's defenses that we're expecting to see in 2025/2026. So as we get further along, not only will these videos get tighter and better, but the rankings will be even better as well. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. So the big thing to note as well is that these lists are fluid. So if an injury piece of news comes out, or somebody's ruled out, or depth chart changes, or situation changes, or something crazy happens, so just bear with me on that as well, because you have to be able to pay attention to the news. I'm not going to make a bajillion edits or clips or anything like that. Just know that when we get to like Saturday night or Sunday, whenever I want to make that video of like players and news to update you, I'll throw it all in there at once. Okay, here we go. Starting off, number one is Bijan Robinson. He's going up against the Bucs defense, whose last year pass rush defense, none of it was really any good. Bijan's going to be the main guy for the Falcons this year, along with Drake London. So I have him number one pretty comfortably this week. Again, these are all projections because we just don't know how good these defenses are going to be. Maybe the Bucs defense went from league average to bottom 10 from last year to they're now top 10. I don't know. We'll see what actually happens this coming season. Next on my list, again, I did these last night before the Eagles and Cowboys game, with Saquon Barkley. I thought he would score pretty high, obviously, and it looks like he did pretty well. Hopefully, he holds close to this ranking that I had him at. Next for me is De'Von Achane. I just think he's going to be used early and often, especially if Tyreek is hampered at all by like that oblique injury or whatever is actually going on with him. And for all I know, Tua doesn't want to throw him the ball anymore. So De'Von Achane I have pretty comfortably high. For Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, I have them all ranked this high because realistically, they're the number one options on their team. They're going to dominate. Again, matchups don't really matter as much for the majority of these guys that are in the have to start category. You drafted them to start, they're going to start. I don't want people to be like, oh, you have Jahmyr Gibbs at 5, but you have Jonathan Taylor at 8. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not expecting crazy leaps and bounds. You're starting all of these players, but this is how I believe it's going to shake out by the end of the week. For Alvin Kamara, it's kind of the same thing. He's going up against the Cardinals defense. I know that they are not going to have, in my opinion, the bestest of defenses this year. They could potentially have a top 10 defense. Who knows? We'll see what ends up happening, but he's going to be a focal point for this team in week one because you have Spencer Rattler starting. I'm not anticipating anything too crazy bananas in the passing game. It'll probably be pretty vanilla, so I think a lot of balls will be thrown to Alvin Kamara, a lot of checkdowns from Spencer, and he'll end up having a really good week. So for Bucky, he's going up against the Falcons. Their defense last year was not very good at all. I think he'll be involved in the passing game quite a bit, obviously, as well, so I have him ranked really high. For JT, he's going up against the Dolphins. I have him a little bit lower on the have to start because the Dolphins' run defense was pretty good last year. With the departure of Campbell, though, the big defensive nose tackle, defensive tackle, whatever he actually was, I don't know how effective the run defense will be for Miami, so I wanted to bump him down just a little bit in my rankings for this week, just in case their run defense is as stout as it was last year. Now I have James Conner way up here. No other creator should have him this high, but why do I have him this high? Because when I do my rankings, I am not just basing it off of implied Vegas points or what sportsbooks have for these guys for their PPR points projected for the week. That's why I have James Conner up here. He is a top 12 running back this week. You have to start him. He is going up against the Saints. They were a bottom 5. I think they were like number 3 or 4th worst run defense last season. They are going to run the ball a lot. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to run the ball a lot. James Conner is going to have an explosive game. Also, it's earlier in the season. He normally doesn't stay healthy. Last year was an enigma, so we want to get our usage out of him early. Kind of projecting, the Saints' run defense is going to be a little bit worse than it even was last year. I think James Conner is going to be in for a smash game. I think he's an absolute have to start. If anybody has him ranked this high, let me know. I'd love to know who it is because they They are an intuitive person. From there, we have Josh Jacobs. I don't like Josh Jacobs having to go up against the Lions defense in week 1. Last year, in the first 5 weeks, that Lions run defense was insane. They were not letting people run the ball. They were not letting them score touchdowns on the ground. They were stopping people cold in their tracks. So if we see that starting again this season before they get all those injuries again, Josh Jacobs could be in for a long slog of a game. Next for me is Chuba Hubbard. For me, again, he's going to be a lot higher than he's probably going to be on anybody else's list. Why? Because the Panthers are going to have a bottom 10 defense. He is going to be the primary ball runner on this football team. He may get subbed out with Rico Dowdle on third downs. If that happens, he loses a little bit of value, and he probably should get all the way down to the bottom of the should start, but I don't know how that's actually going to work in week 1. Again, these are projections. My best guess, he's definitely somebody I would be starting. You drafted him to start too, and I have him pretty high because of the matchup. Next for me is Chase Brown. He's obviously a have to start. Kenneth Walker is an absolute have to start, and Ashton Jeanty I have lower in my should starts because of the fact that I think in week 1 he's going to slightly underwhelm because 1, he's going up against the Patriots defense, which should be a lot better with Mike Vrabel this season, and number 2, the Raiders offense is not that great. And it's week 1, so I feel like Vrabel's going to throw everything he has at him. He knows it's going to be the primary focus for this Raiders offense in week 1, so I just anticipate him getting stuffed quite a bit because the Raiders offensive line is not that great. I have him a lot lower than most of the creators out there on YouTube and social media. That's just fine because these are projections, and I'd rather, again, fantasy football truther tell you what I actually think is going to happen versus just being in line with consensus so I can hide behind the shield of everybody else. When it comes to the likes of James Cook, Kyren Williams, and Amarion Hampton, I have them down here in the could start. Again, you're starting all of these guys because you drafted them to be starters for your football team. They're down here in the could start because in a magical world where you have any 2 of these guys that you can start on your team because you went running back heavy, I wouldn't start these first 3 guys. I don't like the matchups. I know it sounds kind of bad and it sounds kind of crazy, but you have James Cook who's going up against the Ravens, who were a top 5 run stopping defense last year. You have Kyren Williams going up against the Texans, who were a top 10 run defense last year, and you have Amarion Hampton going up against the Chiefs, who were a top 10 run defense last year. I don't think any of those teams are going to be coming into the season with any major injuries. They're going to be set up to stop the run again. I just don't like the matchups. And again, for Amarion Hampton too, he's a rookie, so it's his first game. Najee Harris is apparently going to play, but not going to be the starting lead back. Just take away goal line carries. I don't know. I don't really like any 3 of those guys' matchups, but you're probably going to have to start them anyways. That's why they're at the top. I just don't like the matchups, though. If they had easier matchups, they'd be in the should or have to start categories. And be ranked higher, obviously. Again, for these rankings and tiers, it's not going to be perfect because this is my first go at it. I'm trying to make this a little bit faster. I don't want this to be a 30 or 40 or 50-minute episode. It's really boring. You just want to know the quick gist. And I want to give you guys a little bit of justification for every single person if I can, because some of these people, it's kind of like they're just them. Like, I don't need to tell you why CMC or Bijan or Derrick Henry are going to do well. They're going to do well because they're amazing lead running backs. If you guys want the videos to be longer, please let me know. I just don't want to make them super long because it's kind of boring for me. So I'm imagining it's kind of boring for you. But if you want them to be longer, if you want more of a detailed explanation, let me know. Or if you want to ask me questions in the comments, not saying you have to comment, but if you want a more detailed explanation, I have no problem typing it out to you. I just don't want to make longer videos if people don't need the longer video content. I make my first adjustment because, again, last night I was trying to get this done before the game and trying to record before the game, but I ran out of time. I am going to move Tony Pollard down a little bit just because, again, that Broncos matchup is going to be kind of crazy. I do think it's going to be pretty hard for Cam Ward, so I am going to keep him here in the could start, though. More of the reality that you're going to see Cam Ward probably struggle against the Broncos. They're going to have a top 5 defense overall, top 3 pass defense. Like, he could struggle in his first game. It's kind of a crappy first game for Cam Ward, so Tony Pollard's probably going to get involved quite a bit. So next for me is Isaiah Pacheco. He is somebody, for all I know, after this week, he looks amazing. I know he's going up against the Chargers, who had a good run defense last year, but for all I know, he looks good. He may not have the best stats, but he looks good on tape, and all of a sudden, he's up here in the have to start every single week. He could bounce back this season like I said he was going to. We will have to see, not just in week 1, but week 2 and week 3 to really get a feel of how Isaiah Pacheco looks and how explosive this Kansas City Chiefs offense is going to be this season. For Aaron Jones, he's going up against the Bears. I'm not anticipating the Bears to have the best defense, but they should have an improved defense this coming season. I don't know how long Aaron Jones is going to hang on to the lead spot, so for all I know, he eventually moves down the leaderboard and Jordan Mason plops his way up here. Dave Montgomery is going to be here and the could start. Again, the matchup against the Packers isn't necessarily my favorite, but it's not the worst. I also don't know how much his usage is going to look like this year. He could be just like last year and be the goal line guy, or we could see Jahmyr Gibbs take over more and more of this backfield, which is kind of what I'm predicting for this season, because he's going into his prime. He's coming out of his prime. So we'll see what happens and how they get used in week 1. For DeAndre Swift, I'm not a huge fan of him or what he does. We'll see what he looks like with Ben Johnson. He could pop off this week. Who knows? The Vikings last season, though, again, top 10 rush defense. I don't think that's going to stop this season. I think it's going to probably even improve. So he could be way down here in actual performance by the end of the week. Breece Hall, I don't like him going up against the Steelers either. A lot of these are matchup dependent. It's not necessarily just the talent. It's also matchup. You probably drafted Breece Hall too early in your draft, so you probably are going to have to start him. But against the Steelers in week 1, not my favorite time to have to start Breece Hall. Next for me is Tyrone Tracy. The Commanders' run defense wasn't horrible last year, actually. It was pretty decent. We'll see how it looks, because in reality, we just don't know in week 1 and week 2. We'll get a better idea going into week 3 and week 4. So from there, I got 2 of the rookies. That's why they're in the flex spot for me, because I don't know what it's going to look like with TreVeyon Henderson or RJ Harvey. Obviously, you're going to have the likes of Ramondre Stevenson probably taking away some touches. You're going to have J.K. Dobbins taking away some touches. We just don't know what the usage is going to look like. I don't want to start them even in my flex if I don't have to. If you overdrafted TreVeyon Henderson, you're probably going to have to put him into your flex, possibly start him. If you went super zero RB, it's not my favorite strategy. I have somebody in my league who is starting RJ Harvey because they went like hero RB and then didn't draft an RB until way later in the draft, which was RJ Harvey. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but if you're stuck, it's something you might have to do. It's just not my favorite option. So I wanted to pause right here and tell you again, fantasy football truther, if this does not show you that I am going to be forthcoming and honest, and that at least my content will be straightforward. I'm not going to adjust things and be like, look, I'm a genius. I had Javonte all the way up here in the have to start category in week 1. No, I did this before the game. I didn't know he was going to have close to 20 PPR points in week 1. I didn't think we were going to see Javonte Williams pop off in week 1, especially with the Cowboys run game last year being so inept. I know Rico Dowdle wasn't too bad, obviously, but Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, I think Javonte Williams is kind of a step down, but obviously he looked really good in week 1. We'll see how that goes throughout the rest of the season. If in week 2 he's still popping off, he's probably going to have to obviously move up my rankings dramatically. We'll see what it looks like for him as the season goes along. But again, me being honest, I had him in the kind of flexy at the very bottom. I wasn't a huge fan of Javonte Williams. Anybody who tells you, like, I knew Javonte was going to smash. Anybody who tells you, like, oh, I had him way up high. No, they didn't. They're adjusting afterwards. Nobody told you to draft him super high. He was going a lot later in a draft because people didn't have faith in him. People didn't have faith in the Cowboys' run offense. So if anybody tells you, like, I had him way up here, no, they didn't. They're adjusting stuff. I'm going to be honest, tell you where I actually had him. He was down here for me. Next, I have the if you have to. It's Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. I don't know who's going to be the lead back for this football team. I think it'll probably be Travis Etienne in week 1, but it's very likely if he doesn't perform at a crazy high level, it's Tank Bigsby. Who knows? It could be Bayshaw Tootin. We just don't know. So these are where it's like, if you have to start somebody, start one of these guys, I guess. You're probably going to have to start one of them depending on how deep your league actually is and how your draft fell. Which one's going to be better? I think, again, in week 1, I have Travis Etienne over Tank Bigsby, but who knows? I could be completely wrong. But if I didn't have to start either one of these guys, I would not, because it's just a weird, ambiguous backfield starting off the beginning of the season. Next for me is Austin Ekeler. He has a defined role for the Commanders, so at least I know what I'm expecting to get out of him. Who's going to be the lead back? We just don't know in week 1 and week 2. It could change between those 2 weeks, but at least with Austin Ekeler, I know what he's going to be for this offense for the Commanders. Next on my list, I am going to have Jaylen Warren. Him and Caleb Johnson are down there in the if you have to. 1, the Jets defense should be pretty decent this year. Number 2, I don't know how much the usage is going to be. They say Jaylen Warren's going to be the lead back. Caleb Johnson's going to be kind of like, mixed in here and there. Who knows? They can completely flip it up. Jaylen Warren doesn't look very effective, and then all of a sudden for the rest of the game, Caleb Johnson is the lead back. I don't know. Nobody on YouTube knows because nobody knows what the actual game plan for Arthur Smith is actually going to be. So we're going to see what ends up happening. That's why I have them down here in the if you have to. You're probably going to have to start one of them, unfortunately. If it was me, I'd probably start Jaylen Warren just because it's the safety blanket. But for all we know, Caleb Johnson takes over midway through the game because he looks more explosive than Jaylen Warren actually does. I have Ramondre Stevenson down here. He probably will be the quote-unquote lead back for the Patriots in week 1. We just don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Ramondre. Loves to turn the ball over, loves to fumble. not my guy, so I have him down here in the if you have to. Najee Harris is not going to be the starter. Marlon Hampton's supposed to start this week, according to Harbaugh. But again, Najee Harris could take away some of those goal line carries, score a touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. Who knows? If that's the case, then maybe you should have started him. We just don't know what's going to happen in week 1, but I'd rather obviously start Marlon Hampton, which is why I have him higher, because he's supposed to be the lead back going into week 1 because of everything going on with Najee Harris's eyeball. Another thing to note is as we go along throughout the season, I will have every single running back 1 and running back 2 on this list. Going into week 1, I had made a couple hundred of these little like clip art thingies myself. I didn't want to steal somebody else's. Took a lot of time. Some of them did not upload correctly to each individual ranking template, so I do apologize. I am missing a couple of people, but as we get into the season and roles are more defined, I will have a full list of RB1s and RB2s just to make sure that I'm covering the full spectrum of running backs and wide receivers, QBs, tight ends, and to make sure I'm not missing anybody. It'll be even more important as we get into bye weeks when there's going to be people that you're having to actually like substitute out because they're not playing that week, so the list will be a little bit deeper. But for week 1, this is going to be my tiers, my rankings. Again, we just don't know what's necessarily going to happen in week 1, week 2, so bear with me these first couple of weeks. Obviously, this video, like I said earlier in the video, will get better. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching this far. I appreciate it more than you possibly can imagine for sticking with me through my very first attempt at doing one of these on video. The biggest thing too, again, not only will the content get better, but the list will get better as well once I have more information on these players, how they're looking, how they're being used in their offense this season versus last year, and how these defenses are looking. Matchups are going to be very, very important, especially at the running back position for these projections and rankings. So hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship in 2025. If you are looking for my wide receiver rankings, haven't done that video yet, but once it's done, I will have it around here somewhere so you can watch that as well. Hopefully I'll see you guys again real soon. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day.